Hey everyone, Vincent here from CreativeVegEd.net. Today's tutorial, we're going to be taking a look at the bounce feature in particular. Now, I don't believe this feature is included in version 1 or 1.5 of particular, so you're going to need at least version 2, if not higher, of particular for this to actually work. Now, most of the time when we're creating particles using particular, we're usually creating particles in mid-air, whether it's in space for stars or maybe dust particles or smoke in the air. Now, particular has a very handy little feature called the bounce feature, which allows you to animate or simulate a bouncing effect in particular very easily with no keyframes at all. And it's actually very easy to set up. So let me show you what the bouncing effect is first. So as you can see, we just have some simple particles bouncing down the floor. Now it's a very simple animation or simulation, but it can be a very tedious task if you were to animate this manually. So very nice way to create this effect with the physics built into particular. Now let's go ahead and dive into After Effects here. We're just going to learn how to set this up real quick. So let's create a new composition here, and we're just going to name this bounce effect. So now we're going to create a new layer for a particular. So we're going to hit Control Command Y to bring up the solid settings, and we're going to name this particular. So we're going to go down to the effects and presets and search in particular, and we're just going to drag it into our layer right here. So now we have our particular at its base form. Now we're going to go down to the emitter tab right here, and we're going to change from emitter type from point to box so that our particular layers or our particles are emitting from a whole bunch of areas instead of just a single point. Now I'll go ahead and increase the size of our emitter, so it's going to emit at a wider range. And we're just going to scroll up here and move our whole system upwards, so it's going to emit from the top. Now I'm going to scroll down here into the physics tab, and now this is where all the bounce feature is. Now by default, the physics model is set to air, which we use naturally most of the time. Now we're going to change it to bounce, and nothing really happens. None of our particles actually bounce. Well, first off, let's set our gravity to 2000 so we can have some gravity affecting our particles right here. And now we have to set up a floor layer. So before we do that, let's go ahead and bring down the bounce toggle right here to show us some of our bounce features or bounce options in particular. And as you can see here, it asks for a floor layer. So we can easily create a floor layer by creating a new solid once again, or Control Command Y. And we're going to name this the floor. We're going to hit OK. We're going to make it a 3D object. Now if you don't see this little cube right here, you can just toggle switches down here and just select the cube, hit R on the keyboard, and for the X rotation, we're going to set it to -90 degrees. And if we just take our arrow or selection tool and just move the floor down the Z axis, you can kind of start to see our floor right here. Now we can just bring it underneath our particle or particular layer. We can go down to our particular once again and define our floor layer. So select our floor layer for our floor layer option right here. And just like that, our particular recognizes that our floor is right here, and it's going to bounce all of our particles on this floor. Now right now it's set to infinite plane, which means it's going to use our floor layer as a reference point. So right now it's using our floor layer as a reference point to make our whole plane the actual floor. So not only is this layer our floor, but the whole plane or the whole axis of this composition right here where the floor layer is actually the floor. Now if we just set it to layer size, then of course the size of this layer is just going to be the floor. But with infinite plane selected, the whole plane that the floor is on is going to be the floor. Very handy little feature. You also have a wall layer settings or wall layer option, so you can set a wall wherever you want. And collision event, now by default it's on bounce, so as you can see here, the particles just bounce. Let me just turn off the floor layer. Once again, particular uses the floor layer as a reference, so we don't need to be actually on. It's going to work with the layer off. It's just going to use it as a reference point. So by default, the collision event is at bounce, which means once it hits the floor, it's going to bounce. Now we can always change this to slide, which means once it hits the floor, it's going to slide away, kind of like marbles. We also have stick, which pretty much just sticks on the floor like some kind of tape or something. Maybe kind of good for maybe mosquito traps or something like that. Or we can select what else? Kill, which pretty much just kills the particle when it reaches the floor. Maybe handy for rain or something. So I'm going to set it to bounce, and as you can see, we have some additional options for here, like the bounce option right here, which pretty much controls the amount of bounce. So I'm going to set it to about 75, And if I just random preview it, you can kind of see that our particles bounce kind of like crazy. Maybe we can set this back to 50. Now the bounce randomness pretty much just controls how random the bounce is. So this little number is going to be randomized a little bit. And we also have a slide option. So right now the particles just kind of just hit the floor and slide a little bit. Now if we just change it up to about 100, you can see that once our particle hits the floor and bounces, it's also going to slide off, give it a little bit more variation after it hits the ground. Pretty cool. Now to enhance this, you can also enable motion blur. So go to the particular right here and just hit this little toggle right here for the motion blur, and also enable motion blur for our composition, which is going to blur the particles out when it's moving, so it's going to look a little bit more believable. So essentially that's just really about it. Of course, you can go into particular and tweak some of the settings, the color, the emitter, velocity, all that great stuff. You can all go in there and tweak it all out to make it a little bit more useful in your projects. But this is just an introduction to the bounce feature, in particular 2.0. Very handy little feature and very easy to set up. Of course, in our next tutorial, we're going to be talking about a little bit more advanced method on creating or utilizing our bounce feature. As you can see here, we have some simple camera movement. We also have some of our particles breaking off, as you see here, kind of colliding and breaking off when it hits the floor. And we also have some nice little reflections going on right here. So this is going to be the next tutorial on advanced bouncing in particular. So check that out so you can keep up to date with all of our tutorials on creativedojo.net, where I'll be posting all the video tutorials early compared to my YouTube channel. So check it out, creativedojo.net. Don't forget to experiment with the bounce feature in particular. Leave your feedback comments down below and maybe discuss new video ideas, video requests. But thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you guys next time.